So, imagine you are driving in a totally unfamiliar city, right?
Yeah.
And you trust your GPS implicitly. Like, it says turn left, you just turn
Or
left.
you don't even question it.
Exactly. But what happens when the GPS tells you to drive straight into a lake?
Oh, man.
And to make it worse, all your passengers in the backseat are just cheering for you to do it. You have the actual physical evidence right in front of you, the
A
water.
giant lake.
Right. But everything else, including your own underlying desire to just, cross the finish line and get to your destination, is pushing you to completely ignore reality.
I mean, that scenario perfectly captures the sheer force of cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
because our brains are fundamentally wired to resolve conflict,
Right.
right? And usually the path of least resistance isn't stopping the car to reevaluate the entire route.
No, it's way easier to just keep going.
Exactly. The path of least resistance is finding a way to convince yourself that, the water is shallow or the car can float, or maybe the cheering crowd just knows something you don't.
But what happens when the GPS is your own mind? Today, we're doing a custom deep dive just for you on a really fascinating source document called Reason as a Discipline, Not a Slogan.
Such a good piece.
It really is. And our goal here is to figure out how to stop rationalizing our way into the water. So first, we want to map out the core philosophy of this text in a broad way.
Right.
And then both of us are going to isolate one crucial mechanism from the document and explain exactly how you can apply it to your daily life.
I think to set the baseline here, we should probably clarify what this text actually means by reason. Because, if the phrase reason as a discipline conjures up this image of a cold, calculating robot.
Like someone with no emotions whatsoever.
Exactly, like devoid of human warmth. The source argues that is a complete misunderstanding of the whole concept.
Yeah, it's not about being a Vulcan.
Right.
Well,
It's definitely not about suppressing your humanity or your feelings. It's about treating reason as a highly practical, mechanical tool for dealing with reality.
Right.
It's the framework you need to build a life with your eyes wide open, instead of just relying on wishful thinking.
well, and the central premise here is that reason is incredibly difficult to practice, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because our own internal machinery is frequently working against it. Like, the text starts by looking inward, pointing out that reasoning is effortless when the evidence just confirms what we already believe.
Right. When it agrees with us, we feel like geniuses.
Exactly. But the structural integrity of our character is only really tested when the incoming data threatens a conclusion we deeply want to be true.
Yes.
Or, when anxiety just creates this overwhelming appetite for certainty.
And that leads to one of the most, I think, counterintuitive insights in the document.
Hmm.
And it's about intelligence.
Oh, this part blew my mind.
Right. Because society generally assumes that a high IQ automatically correlates with good critical thinking.
Like, if you're smart, you're rational.
Exactly. But the source just dismantles that idea. High intelligence does not prevent bad thinking. Actually, under the wrong conditions, it acts as an amplifier for bad thinking.
Because a capable mind is just exceptionally skilled at rationalization.
Yes, exactly.
It's like if your brain's primary objective shifts from discovering what is objectively true to protecting an emotional conclusion you've already committed to.
Which we all do.
Right. A high intellect just builds taller, thicker walls around that belief. It operates exactly like a brilliant defense attorney.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. Like, if the verdict, the emotional conclusion is already decided, the intelligent mind just works overtime to defend a guilty client.
It doesn't care about the truth anymore.
Exactly. It will find obscure loopholes, it'll twist opposing evidence, and it just constructs these arguments that sound incredibly sophisticated, but they're entirely defensive.
And the mechanism driving that defense attorney behavior often stems from how we acquire our beliefs in the first place, which is a concept the text refers to as borrowed certainty.
Borrowed certainty, yeah.
Because, the human brain is a massive consumer of energy. So, to conserve cognitive load, we use shortcuts.
We're lazy, basically.
Well, yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
We absorb baseline assumptions from our families, our schools, our political parties, our broader culture, all long before our critical faculties are developed enough to actually audit those assumptions.
It is essentially like downloading a software update onto your phone, right?
Oh, yeah.
You never actually read the terms of service or check the code. You just click accept because you inherently trust the developer.
Or just because everyone else in your network is running the exact same operating system.
Right, exactly.
And look, That is a highly adaptive survival strategy in childhood. We have to borrow certainty to function.
You can't question everything when you're 5.
No, you'd never get anything done. But the cognitive failure occurs in adulthood when we continue to treat that inherited consensus, or that tradition, as actual proof of validity.
Right.
The text emphasizes that authority only tells you who is making a claim, and consensus merely tells you how many people agree with it.
Which is an important distinction.
Huge. Because neither of those metrics establishes that the proposition itself is structurally sound or factually true.
So turning the mind back into an instrument of discovery requires what the text calls intellectual honesty.
Yes.
Which means cultivating the discipline to ask not just if an argument sounds persuasive, but if it actually deserves to persuade you.
I love that phrasing. Does it deserve to convince you?
Right. It shifts the entire criteria for trusting experts. You have to stop looking at the impressive titles or, the alphabet soup of degrees after someone's name. And you start evaluating their demonstrated method, how transparent they are with evidence, and the logical progression of their actual claims.
And intellectual honesty also completely redefines what failure looks like.
Yeah, this is key.
A rationally disciplined mind views the phrases, "I was wrong," or "I do not know enough yet."
Which are so hard to say.
So hard. But it views them not as humiliating defeats, but as vital course corrections. Admitting a deficit in knowledge is literally the ultimate proof that aligning with reality matters more to you than just projecting an illusion of being infallible.
But, okay, if our internal machinery is already operating like a corrupt defense attorney.
Which it is.
Right. That creates a massive vulnerability when we step out into a noisy external media ecosystem that's practically designed to exploit those exact tendencies.
Oh, absolutely.
So the text moves from internal honesty to how we process external inputs. And it starts with our emotional responses, which, again, the document is very explicit that reason doesn't negate feelings.
Right. Grief, joy, frustration, those give human life its texture and depth.
But the crucial distinction the source makes is between the physiological feeling and the intellectual conclusion attached to it.
This is such an important point to wrap your head around.
Yeah, because the feeling itself is always a genuine event in your nervous system, right? Like, if you feel rejected, that physical sensation of rejection is genuinely happening.
Your body is experiencing it.
But the conclusion your brain generates to explain that feeling might be entirely disconnected from reality.
Right.
Like, you can feel profoundly rejected when no actual rejection took place, or you can feel this crushing guilt for an outcome you had absolutely no control over.
It operates just like a car's check engine light.
Oh, I love the check engine light analogy.
It's so perfect, right?
Yeah.
The illumination of the light on your dashboard is a real, genuine indicator that something in the system needs your attention.
The light is not a hallucination.
Exactly. The light is real, but the light itself does not diagnose the mechanical failure. You don't look at a flashing dashboard light and immediately conclude, well, the transmission is completely destroyed.
Right, you don't just abandon the car on the highway.
No. Reason is the diagnostic process. It is the mechanic that actually pops the hood to identify the root cause of the signal.
But to perform that diagnostic check, the mechanic needs context. Which brings us to the second external challenge, the barrage of fragmented claims that just dominate modern communication. Oh, it's endless.
It really is. The text argues that a standalone statistic or an isolated personal anecdote is functionally useless for determining truth. Like, if a headline declares crime has doubled or profits have plummeted.
Which we see every single day.
Right. Reason dictates that the claim is totally meaningless without the baseline, the scale, and the time frame. Going from one incident to 2 incidents is technically a doubling.
Sure is.
But it paints a vastly different picture than going from 10,000 to 20,000.
But let me play devil's advocate here on behalf of the listener for a second.
Okay, go for it.
In a modern information environment, saturated with scrolling news feeds, short-form videos, just constant notifications, isn't demanding the baseline, time frame, and scale for every single incoming claim completely paralyzing?
It sounds exhausting.
Right. Like, it just seems like an exhausting way to live your daily life.
Well, the text actually anticipates that exact friction. The goal isn't to sit down with a spreadsheet and perform, complex statistical analysis on every passing billboard or casual comment you encounter. Okay, good.
It's more about developing a baseline habit of mind. It's a heuristic. It's a reflex that just learns to flag the moment when your internal certainty has accelerated past the available evidence.
I see.
Yeah, it's just the simple, quiet acceptance that complex global or economic systems have absolutely no obligation to be simple, just because a simplified explanation is easier for the human brain to digest.
Right, the world doesn't owe us simplicity. And that leads into perhaps the most manipulative external trap we face, which is persuasive moral language.
Oh man, this happens everywhere.
Everywhere. The document explores how words like compassionate, fair, or inclusive are frequently weaponized. And the underlying psychology here is just fascinating.
Yeah.
Because when a policy or an idea is wrapped in a moral label, it creates this intense automatic pressure to agree.
Because your brain's threat detection system starts flashing.
Exactly. When you hear a policy described as compassionate, you aren't actually evaluating the logistical merits of the policy anymore. Your brain is suddenly evaluating your own social standing. Evolutionary psychology tells us that disagreeing with a tribe's moral consensus historically meant exile and death. So the brain literally registers disagreement as a physical threat.
So we just bypass the logic entirely to protect our social status.
We just nod along.
But the text draws a hard line here. A moral label is not a moral argument.
No, it is not.
Like, a systemic policy might be labeled compassionate, but if we trace the actual mechanics of cause and effect, it might create incentive structures that leave vulnerable populations more dependent and totally worse off.
Right.
And conversely, an act that gets characterized as tough or unloving might be the exact boundary required to ensure someone faces the consequences they actually need for their own development.
And that habit, the habit of noticing when we're bypassing logic out of fear or comfort, that brings us perfectly to the practical application of this deep dive.
Yes, the rubber meets the road.
Right, because the document covers a broad philosophical landscape, but we really want to distill this into actionable tools for you.
Which is exactly where my crucial takeaway comes in. The section that fundamentally shifted how I view daily decision-making is this stark line the author draws between an honest mistake and an act of evasion.
Oh, this distinction is so powerful.
It really is. The mechanics of the two are completely different. Like, an honest mistake is an error of knowledge. You act on the information you have, and later new variables emerge that prove your original premise wrong.
Which is just an unavoidable byproduct of living.
Right, you can't predict everything. But evasion, on the other hand, is an active, deliberate process. It is the willful choice to remain blind.
Yeah.
It is the internal monologue that says, I see enough data to suspect that a major problem is forming, but I am actively choosing not to investigate any further.
Because it's easier in the moment.
Exactly. It is prioritizing immediate emotional relief over long-term structural integrity. And the text pairs this concept with just a brilliant observation about the nature of the physical world. It says reality is remarkably patient, but it is never negotiable. Yeah. Evasion buys you a temporary reprieve from anxiety, but the gears of reality just continue to turn regardless of your attention.
Because the underlying mechanism there is the inviolable law of cause and effect, right?
Yes.
Refusing to observe a cause doesn't halt the effect. It merely ensures that when the effect finally manifests, you're going to be entirely unprepared to handle it.
And that is the core application I want to challenge you, the listener, with today. Clear thinking is the tool that allows you to spot structural failures before they become catastrophically expensive. So think about your own life right now and identify your unopened statement.
Oh, everybody has one.
Everybody has one. For some, it is quite literally a financial document they are terrified to look at because of the spending habits it's going to reveal.
Yeah.
For others, it is a lingering health symptom they just refuse to have diagnosed. Or maybe a deteriorating dynamic in a relationship where resentment is quietly compounding.
Just pushing it under the rug.
Exactly. Whatever that unopened envelope is, evasion allows the interest on that problem to compound in the dark. The application of reason here is to simply open the envelope.
And the beauty of that application is that it illustrates the source's broader argument that reason is fundamentally an act of preservation.
Yeah.
You utilize clear, uncompromising thinking precisely because you fiercely value your health, your financial stability, and your relationships. Reason is the bridge connecting the life you desire with the physical reality in which that life has to be constructed.
Well, so I've been looking internally at how we evade our own personal realities, But your focus for the crucial takeaway looks outward, analyzing how this discipline applies to our social dynamics and,
Yeah.
the price of belonging.
Right, because the section on intellectual independence is critical. We are fundamentally social creatures.
We need each other.
We do. And the text argues that true intellectual independence isn't about reflexive rebellion. It isn't a mandate to just distrust all established expertise or, to adopt a contrarian stance just to prove you were an independent thinker.
Right. You don't have to disagree with everything just to be an individual.
Exactly. True independence is about making your agreement meaningful. When you align with a group's consensus, it should be because you arrived at that conclusion through your own rigorous judgment, not through passive obedience to the group's hierarchy.
Because if your default setting is automatic agreement, your yes carries absolutely no weight.
None at all. And that introduces a real friction point with human nature, because the document acknowledges a deep, legitimate human need for belonging. We want to be integrated into families, professional guilds, political movements, cultural communities.
Of course.
But the structural danger arises when belonging acquires a hidden price tag. Specifically, when a group requires you to stop asking certain questions in order to maintain your membership.
And that is the exact moment a community transitions from a support system into an ideological echo chamber.
Precisely. So the practical application here is to conduct an audit of the communities and institutions you invest your identity in. You have to practice holding your intellectual ground when the consensus demands blind loyalty.
Right.
You can deeply respect a mentor, you can cherish a familial tradition, or advocate for a political platform, but you can never outsource your cognitive responsibilities to them.
You can't just hand over your brain.
Right. The text posits that any institution actually worthy of your allegiance will never require you to surrender the very critical faculties by which that allegiance is judged.
Wow.
Yeah. If a group demands that you stop asking for the baseline data, the scale, or the evidence, the price of belonging has just become too high.
Okay, but let me push back on how that actually looks in practice for a second.
Sure.
Because does maintaining this level of intellectual independence require you to be the constant combative skeptic in literally every social setting?
Ah, I see what you mean.
Right. Like, if you are sitting in a corporate strategy meeting or at a family dinner and you demand a source for every casual claim made, that seems like a highly efficient way to alienate everyone around you.
You'd be unbearable.
You would. So, is there a more internal way to maintain this posture?
That is a vital distinction to make, and I'm glad you brought it up. Practicing intellectual independence does not require you to act as the self-appointed auditor of every conversation.
Okay, good.
As the text outlines, independence is an internal posture of the mind. It is the silent discipline of not allowing the sheer volume, confidence, or repetition of a claim to substitute for actual substance.
Right.
So you can sit perfectly quietly in a boardroom, listening to a flawed consensus build among your colleagues without interrupting them. But internally, you are tracking the mechanics of the argument. You just note to yourself, well, they are relying on a moral label to push this policy, and they haven't provided the time frame for this data, so I'm going to withhold my internal conviction.
That's brilliant. It provides an invisible shield against manipulation. You don't have to fight every battle out loud, but you keep your internal compass calibrated.
Exactly.
And when you do finally choose to speak and express confidence in a direction, that confidence is robust because it rests on your own verified understanding, not just the fragile desire to simply fit in with the room.
It's a game changer.
It really is. Well, we have charted a complex course through this material today.
We certainly have.
We started by examining the internal vulnerabilities of a capable mind, recognizing how intelligence can be hijacked to act as a defense attorney for our emotional biases, and how we blindly download borrowed certainty. Then we looked at the mechanics of navigating the external world, using reason as the mechanic to diagnose the flashing check engine light of our emotions, and resisting the evolutionary pressure of persuasive moral language. And finally, we grounded this philosophy in practical reality. The necessity of ending evasion by opening the metaphorical envelopes in our lives, and the quiet internal discipline of withholding our conviction to maintain intellectual independence.
It really serves as a comprehensive operating manual for navigating an increasingly complex reality.
It does.
And, the text closes with a fascinating assertion about the nature of human happiness, which I think provides a fitting final thought for you to mull over.
Let's hear it.
The source argues that happiness is not a mysterious, ethereal state that just randomly descends upon a lucky few, It has specific causes and requirements. It must be actively understood, engineered, and built through rational values and purposeful, reality-based action.
That really reframes the entire modern pursuit of well-being, doesn't it?
Totally.
Like, if reason is the actual physical tool required to construct a stable, happy life, we have to ask ourselves a pretty difficult question.
Which is,
How might our current cultural obsession with finding happiness, treating it as if it's a magical feeling hiding under a rock somewhere, completely independent of our daily choices and our grip on reality, how might that actually be the exact mechanism driving so much modern misery?
wow. We're so busy searching for the feeling that we drop the tools required to actually build it.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. Keep your eyes open, verify your coordinates, and remember our GPS in the lake.
Yeah, watch out for the water.
The next time the crowd is enthusiastically cheering for you to drive into the water, we hope you have the disciplined independence to hit the brakes.